Hi there, and welcome to my very first solo podcast episode. This is all about my language learning journey and hopefully sharing some of my experiences over the years that will benefit you as you look to improve your English pronunciation. And the layout for the podcast series is much of the same. I'll be speaking in real life English and at the speed I'd speak to my family or friends or people from work so that you can practice listening, practice and improve your pronunciation. For those of you that don't know me, hi, I'm Jamie, an English pronunciation coach with over 3 years experience teaching specifically pronunciation, but around 10 years as teaching English online. And as far as I can go back, English and teaching English was always an option for me as I love languages. One of the first memories I have was being at middle school and my sister collecting me and me making up a language in order to communicate with her. And I think the idea is that I didn't want anyone else to understand what I was saying. And I've always loved that idea of speaking another language with somebody else and others around you cannot understand or they're intrigued to know more. And then when I was a bit older, I remember creating my own language in order to practice the grammar, different elements, and understanding of language. And I don't think it's just me if I say that I remember the first language that I picked up on my own, and that was Portuguese. And I actually remember going on lunch and teaching my friends how to speak very basic Portuguese. Now, I can't speak Portuguese now, I can only understand and listen to a few bits. But I remember teaching them, the family members, and how to say this. And it sparked that passion in me to improve and really understand more and more languages and any opportunity outside of school to pick up language. And so thinking about it now, it's been over 25 years that I remember having an interest in languages. And that's still there for me now. Unfortunately, I don't speak as much and have much time to improve my languages as I'd like to. I'd say there are 3 or 4 languages that I'm pretty confident and comfortable in understanding and speaking, and those would be English, French, Spanish, and I did both of these at university, and then Romanian as well because my wife's Romanian. I've taken many trips to Romania, and really over the last 6-7 years, the only language that I've ever been speaking or listening to and reading, writing, using would be Romanian. So I'd say Romanian I have about a B1, B2 level. And what I actually find it very interesting is that you really don't have to live abroad to speak a language well. For example, my Romanian is much higher than my level of French and Spanish. And I lived in France for a year. I lived in Spain for nearly 2 years. And I've never lived in Romania, only visited twice, and yet my level is much higher. And this really comes down, I believe, to intrinsic motivation, that reason you have to learn, that burning desire must be high in order to continue and make big improvements. Motivation is going to be an episode that I want to speak about later. One of the biggest challenges I found was the pronunciation. This was really the first time when I went to France, people started not understanding what I was saying, even though I had a high level of English and I knew a lot of vocabulary. They weren't quite understanding. And I remember coming up to a train station, we were going to get a ticket, and I was very confident, wanted to use the language just the first opportunity. And I said in perfectly good French what I wanted, how many tickets. And I understood the reply. But she said to me after, as a tip, open my mouth wider as I can't be understood. And for me, I was doing my best French accent. I thought that I had really nailed it, but in fact, I was struggling to be understood because of my mouth. I didn't open it wide enough. And this really put me off studying languages and improving my French because I then wasn't sure if what I was learning was being said correct, and I didn't have a way of correcting that, and I didn't have somebody to speak to practice. So this bit of advice, which has stuck with me now, is part of the reason why I got into English pronunciation, English language learn, because this advice is valuable, but receiving it can be quite hard, especially if you've worked all that time like I had to improve my French, improve my Spanish, Romanian. So when you receive comments that you don't pronounce very well, instead of taking it as an achievement in the fact that you are speaking another language at the end of the day, it was more taken back. I can improve, but I don't know when, so I'm not going to speak. And that hesitation nerves really gets through. And it all involved the mouth, which is partly the huge reason why I try to incorporate vocal exercises when I coach. When COVID happened in 2020, that was the reason I started producing and making content online, particularly around my passion, which is this language learning and teaching English. And I started a few challenges of how to speak Polish, how to speak other languages in 30 days, because I thought that I could make huge progress. And looking back now, if I were to start learning a language, English, from the beginning, in the past, I'd always ignored pronunciation and thought that vocabulary and listening is the core fundamentals. You need to know what words to say and also understand the response. But you listen from a conversation, and somebody has to have understood you in the first place. And if you don't start with pronunciation, then you are just copying the habits that you have formed over the years in your native language. And when you start to apply that to another language, English in this case, you're not going to sound the same. Your body language, your facial features, your way of communicating, what you say and how you say it is so important. And if you have not developed the right pronunciation habits, then the deeper you get involved in English, the more you're going to struggle to be understood and correct the changes in the past. I've been learning Romanian now for around 7 years, and I'm still correcting the way I pronounce words, as I'm often mistook for a Russian speaker, and that's really not the direction I wanted to take Romanian. I'm glad that I no longer speak as in English, but I overemphasize stuff too much and I use the vowels at the back of my mouth instead of the front. So being aware of that is a lot harder if you don't start from the beginnings. That's a huge part of pronunciation, making sure that you start at the beginning.